Cinematic Shuffle has shuffled once again, and fate has decided what I'm going to review today. If you saw my review of Pitch Black, you would have saw at the end of that review where I revealed today's review. I spun that wheel and I watched it turn and turn and turn until finally it came upon this, The Client. Probably one of John Grisham's best film adaptations that a lot of people don't actually know exist. So let's talk about it. The Client is about a streetwise kid named Mark Sway who sees the suicide of a prominent Louisiana lawyer whose current client is Barry the Blade Muldanno, a mafia hitman. Now, before this lawyer killed himself, he told Mark where the body of a senator that was killed was buried. And after the lawyer kills himself, Mark is found at the scene of the crime, and both the FBI and the mafia quickly realize that this Mark kid probably knows more than he says. So he hires Reggie Love, played by Susan Sarandon. Before I go on with the review, make sure that you guys stick around for the end of the review when I will be telling you what the Cinematic Shuffle has decided that I review next. You won't want to miss that, so stick around for that. Now on to my review for The Client. You gotta look at the cast in this film. You got Susan Sarandon, Tommy Lee Jones, Mary Louise Parker, and Brad Renfro plays the kid Mark Sway. This is an actor that died prematurely, R.I.P., but he does such a great job. Now, when people think about John Grisham, when they think about his stories, his novels, his film adaptations, a few titles definitely come to mind, like The Firm, A Time to Kill, The Pelican Brief, maybe Runaway Jury, but there's also quite a few other film adaptations that people don't think about, like Christmas with the Cranks, which is his often forgot about, ignored Christmas film, maybe The Chamber, maybe The Rainmaker, and for some reason The Client. Now, I remember watching this movie way back when, and really enjoying it. In part, that was why I got into reading John Grisham's stories. I collected his books. I read most of them for several years. I kind of had a falling out more recently, so I haven't read a lot of his recent books, but where he started, I read them all. And The Client was one of my favorite books of his, mostly because it has that childlike innocence in the story that's met up and teamed up and headed up against the mafia, which is just this really impossible thing. The movie's probably not as good as the book. I couldn't tell you, it's been way too long since I've actually read the book. If I had to guess, the book's better, but the movie's actually really, really well done, and that mostly has to do with the performances in the film. Susan Sarandon does a really good job of being this wisecracking, bottom-of-the-barrel lawyer, essentially. She's good at what she does, but she is in no way, shape, or form a high-profile lawyer that everybody knows and works in this big law. No. She works in kind of a dirt cheap law office that is running amok. It's loud, it's noisy, it's crowded, and it's really just by happenstance that this kid Mark Sway finds her. Mark Sway's an interesting kid because he's just like your southern boy. He's like your Huckleberry Finn type. Like, he gets into trouble himself because he smokes cigarettes, because this is like in the 90s. I don't know when it's supposed to take place, maybe slightly before that, but he's got, the tattered jeans, the ripped off at the shoulder shirt. On his own, he might not even be that likable of a character, but once he meets Reggie Love, is that their chemistry together works wonders. They are what makes the film. And then you got the FBI prosecutor guy, played by Tommy Lee Jones, by the way, and he does such a great job. I've always loved Tommy Lee Jones, his performance and everything, which is, it's often one note. It's almost always just Tommy Lee Jones being Tommy Lee Jones, but when do we ever complain about that, because he does such a great job at that. So at the beginning, his presence is definitely in your face, and he's definitely not a force to be reckoned with, because he's like FBI, and he knows his stuff, and he's willing to go the roundabout way, be shady a little bit to get the answers that he needs to put away the bad guy. So it's weird, because he's imposing, yet he's also supposed to be seen as a good guy sort, so like an anti-hero. He's not the villain though, obviously, because the mafia is in the film as well, and they are indeed the villain, and they aren't as imposing as Tommy Lee Jones, actually. It's made in the 90s, right? So whenever you think about the 90s and how the mafia was presented in the 90s, it's never that great. It's the one part of the 90s that they can't always do everything perfectly. Something ends up being corny. But everything else in the movie is indeed grounded and relatable and believable. The performances are strong. The story is gripping. The legal mystery behind everything is not anything that I feel like we haven't seen before. But in 1994, when the film came out, it was strong. It was very, very good. I would probably prefer to read the book, which had a better grasp on making, say, the actual villain of the story villainous and scary and imposing. There's elements of the story that don't make 100% sense, like the entire point of having a lawyer in the first place. I mean, I get it. The FBI was doing sketchy things to get evidence, and this kid was lying directly to the FBI about what he saw that day, and lying to the FBI is never a good thing. That was a major point in the film. But he is also a kid who experienced something crazy. They're scared. They're a kid. So, like I said, there's certain things in the film that don't make 100% sense when you sit there and you think about it. And I think that's only because of how it was played out in the film. I think the book made a little bit more sense there. My guess would be the mafia was actually imposing and actually came off as a threat. Overall, it's a good movie. And when it comes down to John Grisham's films, I've seen every single one, but I want to say like one. The Rainmaker. I never ended up seeing that one with Matt Damon. I don't even know why. Someday, I'll check it out. But when I think about John Grisham and all of his film adaptations that he's had, there's so many that I love. So many to the point where I can't really pick which one I prefer over the other. A Time to Kill might be the best one that was technically made, but I love Runaway Jury. The Firm has a lot going on that I appreciate. The Pelican Brief, that one's pretty famous. When it comes down to The Client, that movie it has a warm place in my heart. I know it's not perfect, but it is enjoyable. It is entertaining, it is gripping, but it's also done in the 90s. So don't forget that. And let's take a look at my final score for The Client, which I rated an A- letter grade. Final overall score of 89%. 89 out of 100 possible stars. And you can see from my unbiased and biased score that those two basically agree with each other, and that basically just means that it's as entertaining as it is well done. It has issues here and there, of course, which I've already laid out, but I recommend watching it if you haven't seen it yet, especially if you are a fan of John Grisham, or if you have any interest in the criminal justice field, which I have, which is where I got my major in college, mostly because of John Grisham, by the way. And even if you're not interested in John Grisham or the criminal justice field, watch it for Tommy Lee Jones, because this guy is just awesome for being awesome. And if you have seen The Client, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. Now, to find out what fate has in store for me on the next review, the Cinematic Shuffle has rolled that wheel once again. It rolled and it rolled and it rolled and it ended up on Men in Black. Yeah, I haven't reviewed the Men in Black series on my channel yet, other than Men in Black International, which, but yeah, another Tommy Lee Jones movie, back to back. Wow. I'm not sure when I'm going to release that review, hopefully soon, so make sure that you don't miss that by hitting the like, the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified when I come out with my review for Men in Black. And until then, peace out.